Ethan had always been drawn to the unknown. As a human explorer stationed on the fringes of the galaxy, he had seen planets that glowed with strange colors and moons that spun in patterns unlike anything on Earth. But nothing had prepared him for the day he heard a cry echoing through the jagged cliffs of a remote, mist-covered planet. The sound was sharp, almost desperate, cutting through the thick, humid air. Ethan froze for a moment, listening carefully. It was not a call he recognized, and yet it carried a tone of pain and fear that transcended language. He adjusted his helmet and began climbing toward the source, careful with each step on the uneven terrain. Rocks shifted under his boots, and the wind carried the echo of the cry further down the canyon. As he rounded a jagged corner, he saw her. She was unlike any being he had ever encountered. Her skin shimmered with soft blue hues that reflected the sunlight in a gentle glow. Her form was slender yet strong, with limbs shaped in ways both human and alien. She lay trapped beneath a fallen rock, her hands struggling to push it away. Fear flashed in her eyes when she noticed him, but it was mixed with a plea for help. Without hesitation, Ethan rushed forward. He knelt beside her and assessed the situation. The rock was heavy, far heavier than he had expected, but he could manage it if he used leverage. Bracing his shoulders against the stone, he pushed with all his strength. The rock shifted slightly, then, with a final effort, it rolled enough for her to pull herself free. She collapsed into his arms, her breathing rapid. He quickly checked her for injuries, his hands moving over smooth, glowing skin with care. Bruises, scratches, and a few shallow cuts, nothing that couldn't heal, but she clearly needed rest. Her eyes, wide and luminous, met his, and he felt a connection that was immediate and inexplicable. "Are you okay?" Ethan asked, his voice gentle. He had no idea if she could understand him, but the tone mattered more than the words. She responded with a soft, melodic sound, a vibration that seemed almost musical. Ethan frowned slightly, realizing he couldn't understand her language. But her gestures were clear. She pointed to her side, then to a ridge above them. Danger. He scanned the cliffs quickly. Shadows moved across the rocky walls. Small drones, hovering with a whirring sound, patrolled the area. Their sensors glowed red, and Ethan could see the faint outlines of their mechanical limbs designed to capture or eliminate whatever they encountered. He knew he had to act fast. "Stay close to me," he said, grabbing a small handheld device from his belt. He activated a strobe light, disorienting the drones. They twitched, adjusting their flight patterns, but Ethan didn't wait for them to recover. He grabbed her hand and ran toward a narrow crevice that led deeper into the canyon. The drones pursued, their movements precise, but Ethan was quicker, his feet finding purchase on rocks and uneven ground, with years of training guiding him. They reached a small alcove, hidden from the patrols. He leaned against the wall, catching his breath, while she did the same, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Her eyes studied him with a mixture of curiosity and relief. He noticed faint patterns glowing along her arms, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. It was mesmerizing. "Good, we're safe for now," he said, trying to keep his own nerves steady. He could feel her gratitude radiating, though not in words. It was almost a mental impression, subtle but unmistakable. She extended her hand toward him again, this time placing it lightly on his shoulder. He felt a warmth, not just from touch, but from something deeper, a strange sense of understanding. As night began to fall, the canyon took on a dreamlike quality. Mist curled around rocks, and the glow from her skin reflected faintly on the walls. Ethan realized they needed shelter. He glanced around and spotted a narrow passage leading to what looked like a hidden valley, partially shielded by overhanging cliffs. "Come on," he said, offering his hand. She hesitated, then took it, allowing him to lead her. Every step they took was cautious. Ethan could sense that they were being watched. He wasn't wrong. From the shadows above he caught glimpses of eyes, small, reflective, and calculating. Whatever observed them had yet to reveal itself, but Ethan knew their presence had been noted. The valley opened into a space that seemed almost untouched by time. Bioluminescent plants lit the ground in soft green and purple glows, and the air carried a fragrant, earthy scent. The alien woman, Lyra, paused, her eyes wide with wonder. Ethan looked around, equally amazed. It was as if they had stumbled upon a sanctuary, hidden from the rest of the world. He lowered himself to a seated position, motioning for her to do the same. She mirrored his movement, sitting cross-legged and watching him carefully. Ethan pulled out a small medical kit and began tending to her cuts. Every touch was gentle, cautious, ensuring that she felt safe. She didn't flinch, only watching him with those glowing eyes. And slowly, he began to understand that trust was being formed. Hours passed as he cleaned and bandaged her injuries. The night grew darker, and the valley became a quiet haven. In the distance, strange sounds echoed, calls of creatures unseen. Ethan felt a mix of exhilaration and anxiety. This planet was alive in ways he had never imagined, and Lyra was at the center of it, vulnerable yet powerful. Finally, she stood, moving toward a cluster of glowing vines that seemed to respond to her presence. She gestured for Ethan to follow. He did, carefully, keeping his hands visible to show he meant no harm. As they moved, he noticed faint trails in the soil. Footprints, not entirely like her own, but similar. Others had been here, others were aware of her presence. Lyra stopped at the base of a towering rock formation. She placed a hand on it, and the stone seemed to pulse softly beneath her touch. A faint humming sound filled the air, resonating deep in Ethan's chest. It was as if the planet itself recognized her, or perhaps acknowledged their arrival. Ethan watched in awe, realizing that his simple act of helping her had set off something far larger than he could comprehend. He had rescued one life, but now the ripple of that action was spreading, touching unseen forces and beings that lay hidden beyond the shadows. Night deepened, and the valley was bathed in the soft glow of alien light. Ethan and Lyra sat near a small stream, its water clear and warm. She placed her hand near his, and he felt a gentle pulse, almost like a heartbeat, syncing with his own. He realized that their connection was more than survival. It was recognition, understanding, and trust built across species. From the darkness, faint shapes moved at the edges of the valley. Ethan's heart raced. He didn't yet know what they were or if they meant harm, but he felt confident, for the first time, that he was not alone in this place, and that his courage had not gone unnoticed. Lyra looked at him one last time before closing her eyes and leaning slightly against him. Ethan watched the horizon, listening to the soft sounds of the planet, realizing that this night marked the beginning of an extraordinary journey. Whatever awaited him beyond the mist and the shadows, he knew he had already made a difference. And somewhere, just beyond the valley, other eyes were watching. The ripple had begun. The first light of the alien sun seeped through the mists that hung over the valley, painting everything in soft shades of violet and gold. Ethan stirred, blinking against the unfamiliar brilliance. Beside him, Lyra moved with a grace that seemed effortless. Her skin shimmered faintly in the morning light, and the gentle patterns along her arms glowed in a slow, rhythmic pulse. She turned to him, her eyes scanning the terrain carefully, as if aware of threats he could not yet see. Ethan rose to his feet, brushing dust from his clothing, and took in the valley once more. The bioluminescent plants had dimmed in the daylight, but their presence still lent the space a sense of life and quiet energy. The stream from the previous night reflected the morning sky, and small creatures with translucent wings darted above the water. It was peaceful, almost too peaceful, and he felt a pang of unease. He had learned long ago that beauty often hid danger. Before he could voice his thoughts, a soft hum reverberated through the ground beneath him. He froze, listening. Lyra's gaze turned to a point beyond the stream. Slowly, more figures emerged from the edges of the valley. At first, they were shadows, moving gracefully through the mist. As they drew closer, Ethan could make out their shapes. Tall, elegant beings like Lyra, but each distinct in color, markings, and posture. Their skin glowed in soft hues, some with patterns that shifted and pulsed, reflecting the light of the rising sun. Ethan's heart raced. He had expected that Lyra might have companions, but he had not imagined an entire group, a tribe, stepping into view so suddenly. They stopped a few meters away, forming a semicircle around him and Lyra. Silence fell, broken only by the faint rustle of leaves and the distant calls of alien creatures. Lyra stepped forward, her posture calm but commanding. She extended her hands toward Ethan, then toward the group behind her. Slowly, he understood. She was introducing him. The realization sent a shiver through his spine. This was the tribe she had hinted at the night before, the hidden guardians of this valley. Beings who had lived here for generations, unseen by outsiders. The tribe moved with a careful rhythm, their steps synchronized as if rehearsed over countless years. Their eyes, large and luminous, regarded him with curiosity and caution. Ethan raised his hand slightly, showing he meant no harm. His mind raced, searching for a way to communicate. Words were useless here. Actions mattered. He offered a slight bow, a human gesture of respect, and to his relief, the tension seemed to ease slightly. One of the tribe, taller than the rest, with markings of deep purple along her arms, stepped forward. She spoke in a soft, resonant tone that Ethan could not understand, yet he felt the meaning through subtle vibrations in the air, a form of telepathy. The words were not clear, but the emotion was unmistakable. Inquiry, caution, and a test of intent. Lyra responded, her own voice carrying a melodic cadence that echoed in Ethan's mind. The taller alien seemed to listen, then nodded, slowly. Ethan watched in awe. Communication without words, a conversation flowing through feelings and intent rather than language. He had encountered advanced species before, but never like this. The subtle connection between them, a mix of trust and recognition, was powerful. The taller alien gestured toward Ethan, then toward the surrounding valley. The meaning became clear. They wanted him to prove himself, not through words, but through action. Lyra glanced at him, eyes bright with encouragement. He understood. His actions last night, rescuing her and defending her from the drones, had already shown courage. But now the tribe needed to see his respect for their world, their way of life. Ethan nodded slowly, willing to do whatever was needed. The tribe led him deeper into the valley, past glowing flora and strange rock formations. Each step was deliberate. Ethan noticed the terrain was carefully maintained. Plants grew in patterns that suggested both aesthetic beauty and practical design. Pathways formed naturally, but with clear intent. It was a living village, integrated into the environment without harm. As they reached a wide clearing, Ethan's jaw nearly dropped. Structures rose from the ground, formed from vines, crystal-like minerals, and living wood. The architecture seemed alive, shifting slightly as if breathing. Bridges of woven luminescent fibers connected towers that spiraled into the sky, their tops glowing softly in the morning light. The valley was a sanctuary, a hidden world within a world. The tribe gathered near a pool of water at the center of the clearing. The taller alien motioned for Ethan to approach. As he stepped forward, he felt a sense of reverence. This was sacred space. Lyra walked beside him, her presence comforting, a silent anchor in a place so alien, yet so alive. The taller alien extended her hands, palms open. Ethan understood. They were testing his intentions. He lowered himself onto one knee, a gesture of humility, showing he did not come to dominate or harm. The alien observed him, her gaze steady, as if measuring not just his actions, but his spirit. After a long moment, She inclined her head slightly. Approval. Ethan felt a rush of relief. He had passed the first unspoken test. Lyra touched his shoulder gently, guiding him to sit beside her. The tribe watched, but their expressions were no longer wary. Curiosity and cautious interest replaced suspicion. Ethan realized he was being assessed not as a threat, but as a potential ally. Over the next hours, Ethan observed the tribe and their way of life. They moved with fluid grace, tending to plants that glowed softly, harvesting fruit-like growths that shimmered with color. Some communicated with subtle gestures and telepathic impressions, while others used melodic sounds. Ethan watched, fascinated, noting how they cared for each other, their rituals of cooperation and empathy evident in every action. Lyra demonstrated small gestures toward Ethan, showing him how to interact without offending their customs. He mirrored her actions, learning quickly. The tribe accepted his efforts, and a quiet harmony settled over the valley. But peace was fragile. As he explored, Ethan noticed faint tracks along the edges of the clearing, not the tribe's. Something, or someone, had been here recently. The shadows of unknown creatures flitted across the distant cliffs. Ethan's sense of caution sharpened. He realized that rescuing Lyra had drawn him into a world he did not fully understand, a world where unseen forces watched and judged. When the sun reached its highest point, the tribe gathered again. Lyra stepped forward and gestured for Ethan to follow. They moved toward a secluded grove, where ancient stones formed a circle. Each stone pulsed faintly, as if alive. Ethan felt a hum in his chest, a connection to the energy of the place. The taller alien joined them, observing silently. Lyra extended her hand, guiding Ethan to touch one of the stones. Instantly, he felt images and impressions flooding his mind. Glimpses of the tribe's history, their role as guardians, their connection to the planet. He understood that they were not merely inhabitants. They were protectors, ensuring balance and harmony. Humans were outsiders, rare visitors, and trust had to be earned. Ethan withdrew his hand, overwhelmed but awed. He realized that his presence here carried significance beyond his understanding. Saving Lyra had been a single act, but now he was woven into the tribe's story, their future, and perhaps the fate of the valley itself. Night began to fall again, and the valley transformed. Soft lights glowed along the structures, and the air shimmered with energy. Ethan sat beside Lyra, watching the tribe perform evening rituals. They moved with precision and grace, their voices creating harmonies that resonated with the valley. It was mesmerizing. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt truly small and yet profoundly important. He had acted with courage, compassion, and respect, and it had opened a door into a world of wonder. The tribe had appeared not as threats, but as guides, and he sensed that his journey with them was only beginning. As the first stars appeared in the sky, faint shapes moved at the edges of the valley. Ethan's instincts tensed. He knew that the outside world would not leave them untouched forever, but beside him, Lyra's hand rested on his, a silent promise that they would face whatever came together. And somewhere, just beyond the trees and rocks, unseen watchers noted the human who had saved one of their own. The ripple of his actions continued, spreading further than he could imagine, drawing attention from eyes both curious and dangerous. Ethan looked out at the glowing valley, the tribe moving with quiet purpose around him. He felt a mixture of awe, caution, and hope. This world was alive, full of secrets, and now he was a part of it. He did not yet know what challenges awaited, but he was ready to meet them. Morning light spread across the valley like a gentle wave, illuminating the bioluminescent flora that Ethan had come to admire. The air was cooler than the night before, crisp and tinged with the earthy scent of the river that ran through the valley. Ethan stood beside Lyra, watching as members of her tribe moved with purpose, tending to the plants and structures that blended so seamlessly with the natural world. Each motion was precise, yet graceful, as if choreographed by the planet itself. Lyra turned to him and extended a hand, inviting him to follow. Today, Ethan realized, would not be merely about observation. He sensed the tribe had plans, tests to see if he was more than just a courageous stranger. As they walked, he noticed subtle patterns in the landscape, the way certain plants leaned, how the rocks created natural barriers, and the faint vibrations in the soil beneath their feet. The tribe's awareness of their environment was extraordinary, and Ethan knew he would have to learn quickly if he wanted to earn their full trust. They arrived at a clearing where the sunlight streamed down through a natural canopy of vines and leaves. In the center, a shallow pool reflected the sky, and around it, stones arranged in concentric circles pulsed faintly. The tribe members formed a semicircle, their attention focused on him. The taller alien who had observed him earlier stepped forward, her eyes glowing with intensity. She raised her hands in a slow, deliberate motion, and Ethan felt a wave of mental impressions, expectations, challenges, and unspoken questions. Lyra touched his arm lightly, and he understood. This was a test of courage, intellect, and empathy. The tribe wanted to see if he could navigate their world without causing harm, if he could understand their values and respect their ways. Ethan's chest tightened. He had faced dangers before, but this was different. Here, failure was not just personal. It could jeopardize the trust of an entire species. The first task was deceptively simple. Ethan was instructed to cross a narrow ridge that stretched above a deep chasm. The stones were slippery, and the wind gusted unpredictably through the canyon. His instincts screamed caution, but he remembered Lyra's guidance and the lessons he had observed the tribe using. He placed each foot carefully, testing the stones for stability before committing his weight. At one point, a loose stone shifted beneath him, and his hand shot out to grab a vine that hung from the cliff. The vine held, and he continued, muscles tense and heart-pounding. Halfway across, a sudden tremor shook the ridge. Ethan froze, but then he realized it was not natural. From the shadows, small creatures, feline-like but with luminescent fur, emerged, curious but wary. Ethan recalled the tribe's approach: caution, observation, and respect. He froze again, maintaining calm, allowing the creatures to move past him without interference. His patience and restraint seemed to satisfy the tribe, who watched silently from the clearing below. Once safely across, Ethan was guided to a second task. This one involved the plants that glowed along the riverbank. Some of them reacted to touch, others to scent, and a few emitted a soft, harmonic tone when disturbed. Ethan was instructed to harvest a particular fruit-like growth without harming the surrounding ecosystem. He knelt, examining the plants closely, noting their reactions. Carefully, he plucked the fruit, ensuring minimal disturbance. When he presented it to the taller alien, she nodded in approval, her eyes reflecting a quiet satisfaction. The third trial tested his empathy and understanding. Ethan was led to a grove where small creatures, injured and frightened, had taken refuge. Lyra gestured for him to approach. He knelt beside them, speaking softly, moving slowly. The creatures flinched at first, but Ethan mirrored Lyra's calming gestures, and gradually they allowed him to tend to their wounds. He cleaned scrapes, applied natural remedies the tribe had shown him, and watched as the creatures slowly regained strength. Lyra's eyes met his, and he felt a surge of pride. This was more than bravery. It was understanding, compassion, and respect for life in all its forms. By mid-afternoon, Ethan had completed the trials. The tribe observed silently, their expressions unreadable. Yet he sensed a subtle shift in their energy. They had measured him not by his words, but by his actions, his patience, and his empathy. For the first time, he felt that he belonged here, even if just slightly, in this hidden world. But peace was not meant to last. From the distant cliffs, a shadow moved. A group of alien invaders, heavily armed, and clearly intending to capture Lyra and the tribe. Ethan's heart leapt into his throat. The tribe had warned him of outsiders who sought to exploit the valley's resources, but he had not anticipated immediate danger. Lyra placed her hand on his shoulder, a silent reminder of trust and courage. The tribe responded with astonishing speed. They moved through the valley like water, blending into the environment, using the terrain and their knowledge of the land to create barriers and traps. Ethan followed, heart pounding, ready to assist with anything he could. His training combined with Lyra's guidance allowed him to contribute strategies that the tribe had not anticipated: diversions, rapid repositioning, and the use of natural camouflage. The invaders advanced cautiously, underestimating the tribe's connection to the land. Ethan noticed their surprise as traps activated, vines snapping to block paths, and pools of water reflecting light in ways that disoriented them. The tribe's coordination was mesmerizing, their actions precise yet fluid, each member contributing without verbal commands. Amid the chaos, Ethan found himself beside Lyra. Her eyes were fierce, glowing with determination. She gestured toward a narrow passage leading to higher ground. Together they maneuvered through the valley, using natural cover and the terrain to stay ahead of the invaders. Ethan realized that his role was not just protection, it was integration. He had to move as they moved, anticipate as they anticipated, and trust as they trusted. Hours passed, the battle unfolding like a complex dance. Ethan marveled at the tribe's ability to maintain control and coordination under pressure. Every action had purpose, every movement calculated. He contributed what he could, using his human knowledge to enhance their tactics, throwing objects to distract, signaling paths, and helping reinforce defensive positions. The invaders grew frustrated, unable to predict the combined efforts of human ingenuity and tribal wisdom. Finally, the invaders retreated, beaten not by force alone, but by strategy, empathy, and the harmonious coordination of the tribe. Ethan stood among them, chest heaving, feeling both relief and exhilaration. The taller alien approached, observing him closely. Her eyes glowed softly, a silent acknowledgement of his courage, intelligence, and integration into their ways. Lyra placed her hand gently on his, and Ethan felt a warmth that went beyond simple gratitude. It was trust, respect, and recognition. He had faced trials, defended the tribe, and proven himself worthy of their acknowledgement. The valley, once a mysterious sanctuary, now felt like a world he could belong to, a place where courage and compassion were honored above all else. As night fell, the tribe gathered for a quiet ritual. They moved with grace and purpose, their voices creating harmonies that resonated with the valley. Ethan watched, understanding that this was more than celebration. It was reaffirmation of bonds, a recognition of the human who had proven himself and would now play a role in their story. Ethan realized that the challenges were far from over. The invaders had retreated, but their interest in the valley and its secrets would not fade. Yet he felt a sense of readiness he had never known. With Lyra and the tribe by his side, he knew he could face whatever came next. The trials had not only tested his skills, but had taught him about connection, respect, and the power of actions over words. As stars appeared in the sky, Ethan looked across the valley. The tribe moved gracefully around him, and Lyra's presence was a steady reassurance. He understood that his journey had only begun. Saving Lyra had been the spark, but now he was part of a story that spanned generations, species, and worlds. The ripple of his actions would continue, shaping the fate of the valley, the tribe, and perhaps even the wider universe. And somewhere beyond the valley, unseen eyes watched, measuring, calculating, waiting. Ethan knew that future challenges would come, but he also knew he was no longer alone. He had earned a place among the guardians of this world, and together they would face whatever storms the galaxy had yet to send. The morning sun stretched over the valley, spilling warm light across the bioluminescent plants that shimmered faintly even in daylight. Ethan woke with a renewed sense of purpose. After the trials and the initial threat of the invaders, he now understood that this world was alive in ways humans rarely imagined. Every stone, every plant, every creature seemed connected, and the tribe's presence was the living proof of that harmony. Lyra approached him, her movements fluid and quiet. She gestured toward the clearing where the tribe had gathered, and Ethan understood. Today would be more than observation or learning. It would be action. A message had arrived through subtle telepathic vibrations from scouts at the valley's edge. The invaders were returning, larger in number and more determined than before. They sought not just Lyra, but the tribe's secrets, the delicate balance that the Guardians had preserved for generations. Ethan's pulse quickened, but he felt ready. He had learned the tribe's ways, integrated into their movements, and understood the delicate balance between force and respect. Today, courage alone would not suffice. Strategy, empathy, and trust would guide the battle. The tribe assembled, forming a wide circle around the central clearing. Ethan noticed the precision in their arrangement, the taller alien leading, Lyra beside him, and others moving into positions that utilized the terrain to its fullest advantage. Bridges of woven vines, bioluminescent plants, and natural stone paths created a defensive network that would confuse and slow intruders. Ethan added his input cautiously, suggesting diversions and placements that the tribe could enhance. His human ingenuity, combined with their intimate knowledge of the land, created a defense more formidable than either could achieve alone. The first signs of the invaders appeared as faint silhouettes along the ridge. Their mechanical limbs and weapons glinted in the morning light. Ethan felt a surge of tension. He had faced dangerous situations before, but this was different. These beings were not here for dialogue. They were here for conquest. Yet, he was not alone. The tribe moved with synchronicity, and he was part of that flow now. The battle began silently at first. Ethan observed the invaders' approach, noting their formations and movements. He signaled to the tribe with subtle gestures he had learned during his trials. Bioluminescent plants shifted, creating barriers and distractions. Vine bridges tightened and released, forming paths that guided the invaders into traps. Pools of reflective water diverted light, disorienting their sensors. Ethan's heart pounded as he watched the invaders stumble, unprepared for the blend of natural strategy and human improvisation. Lyra moved beside him, her presence a steadying force. She extended her hands, and Ethan felt a pulse of energy through the ground, a subtle push that rippled through the valley. The tribe responded, moving in patterns that were almost dance-like, using the terrain and environment to their advantage. Ethan assisted, combining his knowledge of mechanical weaknesses with the tribe's natural defenses. Every action counted. Every choice could mean success or failure. Hours passed in a tense blur. The invaders advanced cautiously, trying to anticipate the defenders' movements, but they were outmatched. Ethan's strategies worked seamlessly with the tribe's instincts. Vines ensnared mechanical limbs, reflective pools confused targeting systems, and natural terrain funneled the invaders into traps where they could be safely immobilized. Ethan realized the beauty of this collaboration. Human reasoning combined with alien intuition created a force greater than either alone. Amid the battle, Ethan noticed one invader attempting to bypass the main defenses, heading straight for Lyra. Without hesitation, he moved, intercepting the threat. Lyra, recognizing his intent, assisted by subtly shifting the terrain under the intruder's path. Together, they neutralized the immediate danger, demonstrating not just bravery, but a deep trust and understanding between species. The invader was captured, unable to continue its mission, and the ripple effect halted the other attackers. Finally, after what seemed like hours, the invaders retreated. Their numbers were reduced, their confidence shattered. Ethan stood in the clearing, breathing heavily, sweat and exhaustion mingling with relief and exhilaration. Around him, the tribe gathered, their expressions calm but radiating quiet pride. The taller alien approached, observing him closely. Her eyes glowed softly, and Ethan felt a wave of acknowledgement. He had proven himself not just as an ally, but as a being worthy of trust and respect. Lyra stepped forward, her hand resting on his arm. He looked into her eyes and felt a connection deeper than anything he had experienced. The battle had tested courage, strategy, and empathy, and in every way he had emerged not only unscathed but fully integrated into this world. The tribe moved around them, performing quiet rituals of gratitude and restoration. Plants shifted, vines wove themselves into protective patterns, and injured creatures were tended to with care. Ethan watched, understanding that this was more than celebration. It was the reaffirmation of bonds, the recognition of a human who had become part of their story. As night approached, Ethan found himself standing on a cliff overlooking the valley. The glowing village below was alive, pulsing with energy and life. He reflected on the journey. Saving Lyra had been the catalyst, but the trials, the integration, and the defense had been the real lessons. He had learned patience, empathy, strategy, and the subtle power of observation. Most importantly, he had learned that trust could bridge worlds, and courage could open doors to extraordinary destinies. The tribe gathered for a final ritual beneath the stars. Lyra led him to the center of the gathering, where the stones pulsed faintly in response to his presence. The taller alien extended her hands, and Ethan felt a mental impression, an acceptance, a recognition, a place among them. He knelt respectfully, and the tribe moved around him in a pattern that seemed like a dance, harmonious and precise. When it was complete, he stood, feeling the weight of responsibility and the warmth of belonging. Ethan looked around the valley, seeing the tribe in their element, moving with grace and purpose. Lyra approached him, her touch gentle but firm, a reminder that he was now part of something larger than himself. The invaders would return someday, perhaps, but he was no longer just a visitor. He had become a guardian, a bridge between human ingenuity and alien wisdom, capable of defending and preserving this hidden world. As the stars brightened in the night sky, Ethan realized that his journey had changed him profoundly. Courage, empathy, and understanding had allowed him to cross boundaries that few humans ever would. The valley was safe, at least for now, and he had earned the trust of a species that had once seemed distant and incomprehensible. He had saved Lyra, faced trials, fought alongside the tribe, and emerged not only alive but fully part of their world. In the quiet that followed, Ethan and Lyra walked along the edge of the valley. The soft glow of the plants illuminated their path, and he marveled at the connection between life and harmony that the tribe maintained. He knew that his role here was ongoing. He would continue to learn, to protect, and to grow alongside the tribe. And somewhere beyond the distant cliffs, hidden from sight, other observers watched. They noted the human who had proven himself among the Guardians, the one who had earned trust and respect through courage, empathy, and understanding. Their intentions were unknown, but Ethan felt ready. Whatever challenges the future held, he would face them with the tribe, with Lyra beside him, and with a newfound understanding of what it meant to bridge worlds. As dawn approached again, Ethan stood quietly, taking in the beauty and complexity of the valley. He had entered this world as an outsider, uncertain and cautious. Now he was a part of it, a human who had crossed the boundaries of fear and misunderstanding, proving that bravery and respect could unite even the most distant species. Lyra reached for his hand, and he held it firmly, feeling the pulse of life around them, the silent approval of the tribe, and the quiet satisfaction of having found a place where his actions truly mattered. The stars faded into morning light, and with them, the promise of a future full of possibilities. Ethan breathed deeply, knowing that this valley, this tribe, and this alien woman had changed the course of his life forever. He had discovered a world where courage, compassion, and understanding were not just virtues, but necessities for survival and harmony. And he was ready to embrace every challenge that lay ahead, as protector, ally, and human among the guardians of the valley.